Every game I win in Football Manager, I get to steal a player from the opposition team. But the problem is, I will be in charge of the side rock bottom of the Premier League table right now, Sheffield United. The only way that I will be able to sign players in this video is by beating the opposition on the field in every single competition. So if we beat Manchester City and the wheel lands on a striker, I can steal Erling Haaland. If I beat Liverpool and the wheel lands on winger, I can steal Mo Salah. However, this team is predicted to get relegated come the end of the season, and if that happens, then this challenge is over. Our first game of the Premier League season is at home against Everton, and I've already got my eyes on Dominic Calvert-Lewin for this game. We are going to be running GYR's Grogu tactic for this challenge, and this is going to be our lineup for game week 1. We actually battered them all game and came back from 3-1 down to win the game 4-3. So we spun the wheel and it landed on right wing or left wing. So I had to pick between Arnaut Danjuma and Dwight McNeil. So I went for Dwight McNeil and he joined the team and will be in the squad for the next game. Fulham was up next, and thanks to a 97th minute winner, we picked up another 3 points and stole yet another player. We spun the wheel again and it landed on centre back, so Issa Diop joined the club. The best way for me to improve this team is by winning against the big sides, and that is exactly what we did against Arsenal, thanks to an 89th minute goal from our stolen player Dwight McNeil. The wheel was back in action and yet again it landed on wingers, and there is only one choice here, as Bukayo Saka is the latest addition to Sheffield United. We finished the first month of this challenge by taking on Leeds in the EFL Cup, and we lost on penalties. And to keep this save interesting, every time I lose a match, I'll spin the wheel as well. Whatever position it lands on, I will send one of those players to the opposition that beat me. So the wheel was back and it landed on centre back, so sadly we have to send Jack Robinson up the M1 to join Leeds United. Moving into September, we came up against one of the other newly promoted teams in Burnley at Turf Moor, and now we have Bukayo Saka in this team. I actually feel pretty unstoppable. This game was pretty straightforward, with us running out 3-0 winners with Dwight McNeil on the score sheet yet again. It seems like he was the perfect first player to steal in this video. The wheel ticked round this time and it landed on fullback, which wasn't the best, but Welsh international Connor Roberts comes into the team. This challenge has started better than I could have ever imagined, and after 4 league games, we're flying high at the top of the Premier League table. It was Brighton next, but Kayo Matoma scored the only goal of the game, so we'd lose yet another player. We spun the wheel and it landed on goalkeeper, so we say goodbye to Wes Foderingham. So now we have a little bit of a crisis in between the sticks going into our next game against Newcastle. Marcus Dewhurst comes into the team for this one, and Saka scored his first Sheffield United goal on our way to a 3-2 win. The wheel was back in our favour again and it landed on fullback yet again, but this time it was a huge result as Kieran Trippier joined the team. Rounding off the month, we had Nottingham Forest at home, and Trippier made his debut in a 4-1 win for the Blades. Yet again it landed on winger, so I took Callum Hudson-Odoi. We moved into October and we were still top of the Premier League table and faced a trip to London to take on Brentford. We took our second L in the league, so I was praying the wheel didn't land on either of our wingers. Luckily for us, it landed on fullback, so we sent our on-loan left-back Luke Thomas off to Brentford. It was Chelsea up next at Bramall Lane, and we somehow managed to pull off yet another win, with Benny Traore snagging a brace. This time the wheel landed on central midfielders, so there was one clear choice here for me, bringing the Premier League's record signing Moises Caicedo to Sheffield United. So this is where I made a huge mistake in this save. So obviously I used a real world database for this video, and Moises Caicedo has already played for Brighton and played for Chelsea. So despite stealing him, I couldn't register him to play a single game for us in the league, but he remained here for the rest of the season. The final game of the month was away to Tottenham, and Bukayo Saka's return to North London was very successful as he scored 2 goals in a 4-1 win. On the spin of the wheel, we ended up being able to take another central midfielder, so entered James Maddison, who is perfect for our attacking midfield spot moving forward. The wins kept flooding in as we managed to beat Crystal Palace and Aston Villa, and our rewards for these 2 games was Sam Johnston to solve our goalkeeper problem and John McGinn. However, the next fixture was massive as we would take on Manchester City at home. Imagine if we beat them. Imagine if it landed on striker and we welcomed in Erling Haaland. Well, only half of that came to be, as we did beat Manchester City thanks to 2 goals from our star boy Bukayo Saka, but the wheel didn't bless us with Haaland, but it did land on centre-back, so we welcome in Ruben Dias, which I am perfectly happy with, by the way. Following that win against City, we're 13 games in and currently 4 points clear at the top of the Premier League, and this team is starting to have some serious star power. However, this is where we came crashing back down to earth with a bit of a bang. Liverpool was next on the calendar, and we of course lost at Anfield. The wheel landed on fullback yet again, and I wasn't going to lose Kieran Trippier, so we sent Reece Norrington-Davies to Liverpool. We then shared a goalless draw with Bournemouth, which in this save means no players change hands in either direction. We then got hammered by newly promoted Luton Town at Kenilworth Road, somehow managing to concede 6 goals in the game. This time, the wheel landed on winger, and there was no way that they were getting Saka, so Ben Osborne became their latest signing. The small glimmer of hope in this month was our 2-1 win against Wolves at home, and we ended up taking João Gomez thanks to the power of the wheel. We then shared a 2-2 draw with West Ham before suffering yet another defeat, this time to a Bruno Fernandes penalty. Our punishment for this defeat was losing a central midfielder, so we sent John McGinn to Old Trafford, but knowing that he wouldn't be able to play for them all season. December was a rough month, losing 3 players and only getting 1 back in return. Oh, and the rest of the teams had caught us up in the league, and we've dropped down to 3rd. We kicked off 2024 with a barnstorming 4-4 draw with Fulham before opening our FA Cup campaign against Vincent Kompany's Burnley. This game was pretty straightforward yet again, and we progressed into the next round with a 4-2 win, and our reward was striker, so we took Patrick Bamford. He is also unable to play, so I guess at this point I am just still an idiot. After this, we lost on the road to Everton, and in some weird element of poetic justice, the wheel landed on winger, so Dwight McNeil returned to the club where he started the season. He was a great servant and will always be remembered as the first player that we stole in this series. It was the FA Cup 4th round up next, where we drew 0-0 in the first leg against Luton, meaning a replay at Bramall Lane would be on the cards, but not before we got absolutely battered by Arsenal in the league, losing the game 5-0. This time the wheel landed on winger, so Benny Traore swapped our red and white for the red and white of Arsenal. We opened February with another home win, this time beating Burnley 2-1 thanks to goals from James Maddison and Olsen Trusty, with the wheel landing on central midfielder, so I brought Sander Berge back to the club for a second spell. Up next was the FA Cup replay with Luton Town, which also ended in a draw, but this one would be settled by penalty shootout, with Luton coming out on top, with both Saka and Brewster not scoring their penalties. The wheel was back to see us lose yet another player, and this time we saw John Egan lead the club after scoring the goal to send the game to penalties. This wheel is damn cruel. However, in the Premier League, we continue to be impressive with wins against Brighton, Newcastle and Brentford to close out the month of February. From Brighton, we secured Ansu Fati, and I'm basically praying that we're going to go into a second season of this because I know that he's ineligible to play, but this could still be very interesting if we went into a season number 2. From Newcastle, we welcomed Brazil international Bruno Guimaraes, who will walk into our midfield, and from Brentford, we secured a new front man as the wheel landed on striker, so I had to select Ivan Toney, who had now returned from his ban. Looking at the table at the end of February, we're still very much punching above our weight as we sit in 5th place with 49 points from our 26 Premier League games. March started with a 1-0 loss on the road to Chelsea, with Christopher Nkunku getting the only goal of the game, and this time the wheel landed on right back or left back. Luckily for me, Kieran Trippier was injured in this game and did not play.
Good lucky git.
So Connor Roberts was left behind in the changing rooms at Stamford Bridge. Ivan Toney then went off in our next game, scoring a remarkable hat-trick against Spurs, meaning we got to take our second player from Big Ange this season. The wheel rewarded us this time with a shiny new fullback, so I pulled in Ben Davies as he can fill in holes that we do have at centre-back and at left-back. We followed that up with a 5-0 dismantling of Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park and managed to steal one of their best players as the wheel landed on centre-back, so Mark Gahey, welcome to the Blades. Rounding off March, we shared a 1-1 draw with Aston Villa, with Pedro scoring in the 88th minute to save Villa from losing yet another player to us. April started with another chance to take a player from Manchester City, but we didn't really stand a chance at the Etihad, losing the game 2-0, which cost us Ivan Toney. This was a cruel blow because he was an absolute bagsman for us, scoring 6 goals in his 5 games at the club. Next was Liverpool at home, and I was fully expecting to lose another player, but despite going a goal down, the boys won the game with goals from Saka, Archer and Maddison, meaning we got to take a player from Jurgen Klopp. Sadly for us, Salah and Van Dijk both missed the game, but regardless, the wheel landed on central midfield, so I was very chuffed to sign Dominik Szoboszlai. We then shared a 2-2 draw on the road with Bournemouth before finally getting our own back on Luton with a 3-0 win at home, with Szoboszlai scoring his first home goal for the club. I didn't think there was anyone at Luton that could improve us too much, but the wheel landed on goalkeeper, so Tim Krul arrived to be our backup. So with 3 games of the season remaining, we were very much in the Champions League hunt, and we kept the pressure on with a massacre at Molineux, beating Wolves 4-0. The wheel landed on fullback, so we picked Johnny to add to the squad, but to be honest, unless we lose players in that position, I don't see him getting much game time. Our penultimate game of the season saw us take on West Ham at home, and our impressive goal-scoring form continued, once again putting the ball in the back of the net on 4 occasions. We were rewarded with a centre-back from the wheel, so we snagged summer signing Edson Alvarez, as he can play in 2 key positions in this tactic. So with 1 game to go, we couldn't win the title, but we could secure Champions League football, and we'd face Manchester United at home on the final day of the season. Sadly, the game was a little bit of a damp squib, ending goalless to see us finish Season 1 5th in the Premier League and entering into the Europa League next season. It was a remarkable season for Sheffield United and Bukayo Saka, who finished as the league's golden boot after we picked him up in game week 3. And at the end of the season, this is what our best 11 looks like, and there isn't one player that remains from the original Sheffield United team, but wow, how good does this side look? Now, I'd love to do a season number 2, but I want to see if you guys enjoy this content, if you enjoy this episode number 1. If you do, drop a like on the video. If it hits 250 likes, we will do a season number 2 of this with Sheffield United, starting with the team that you have just seen. Let me know if you enjoy the content, guys. Hopefully you do.